Welcome everyone to another exciting and mind-blowing episode where we dive deep into the world of rare coins, unbelievable minting mistakes, and jaw-dropping values that can turn a simple piece of change into a life-changing fortune. And today's story is about one of the most shocking discoveries in numismatic history, the 1997 $P quarter coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike because this little 25-cent coin, normally something you might toss in your pocket or spend without a second thought, has been found to be worth a staggering $63 million due to a combination of ultra-rare minting errors, unique die characteristics, and incredible historical coincidences that have made it one of the most valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint. And what makes this story even more fascinating is the fact that it all started with a coin so ordinary looking that most people wouldn't even glance twice at it, yet hidden beneath its shiny surface lies a complex web of minting anomalies, double strikes, metal impurities, and edge misalignments that have turned it into an icon of modern coin collecting. So sit back and get ready as we explore every detail, every twist, and every possibility that makes the 1997 P quarter such a legendary piece worth an unimaginable fortune today. Because this is not just a coin, it's a mystery, a marvel, and a miracle of modern minting gone spectacularly wrong in all the right ways. The 1997 P quarter was produced at the Philadelphia Mint during a period when the U.S. Mint was transitioning equipment, refining metal composition, and adjusting die pressure settings to improve strike consistency. But these changes, instead of perfecting production, led to some bizarre outcomes on certain coins, and among them, the 1997 P became the standout example where a combination of human error and mechanical imperfection created something that could never be replicated intentionally, making it both priceless and irreplaceable. Imagine holding a coin where the obverse image of George Washington is doubled, his profile slightly ghosted to the right as if his spirit itself was caught mid-strike, and the reverse image of the eagle, normally a strong and proud emblem of American strength, is off-center, rotated slightly clockwise, with the edges showing a faint but visible reading error, where the lines that should be crisp and uniform instead fade, blur, and vanish altogether in certain sections, as if the metal itself was melting under the pressure of the die. Now combine that with a planchette flaw, a tiny bubble of trapped air beneath the surface that expanded just enough to cause a ripple effect through the design, and you have a perfect storm of mistakes that can never happen again in exactly the same way, making this single coin a once-in-a-lifetime creation that defies logic, probability, and even the Mint's own quality control history. But what really pushed the 1997 P quarter into the $63 million spotlight wasn't just the visible errors, it was the hidden layers of discovery that numismatists uncovered using high-resolution microscopes and spectral analysis, revealing microscopic doubling within the date and lettering, signs of die fatigue around the motto, "In God We Trust," and even trace elements of foreign metal alloys that shouldn't have been present in the coin's composition at all, leading experts to believe that this coin might have been struck on an experimental planchette, possibly during a test phase when the Mint was evaluating metal blends for future use. And if that's true, this 1997 P quarter could represent not just a minting error but an unintentional prototype that slipped through the cracks and entered circulation by pure accident, only to be rediscovered decades later in astonishing condition. Imagine being the person who found it, perhaps tucked away in an old coin jar, a family heirloom, or change received at a gas station, and realizing after research that the dull quarter in your palm is valued higher than the world's most expensive jewelry, paintings, and even luxury cars, a coin that collectors would fight to own because of the story it carries and the impossibility of its creation. And indeed, when word of the $63 million 1997 P quarter surfaced in numismatic circles, it caused shockwaves across the world, with experts arguing over its origins, authentication labs verifying its legitimacy through endless tests, and auctions preparing for record-breaking bids that made history. The primary reasons for its insane value include its extreme rarity. Only one such coin has ever been confirmed to exist in this exact error combination. Its flawless preservation despite the errors, its provenance as a legitimate US mint product, and its symbolic representation of how chaos and perfection can coexist in one object. When collectors and historians examined the 1997 P quarter, they noticed several categories of mistakes layered into one coin: a double die obverse, where the main image of Washington and the lettering were impressed twice due to a misalignment during the striking process; a rotated reverse die, causing the eagle and legends to tilt out of proper alignment; and a broad strike, where the coin's rim failed to form properly because the collar die was improperly seated, allowing metal to flow outward, resulting in a slightly larger than normal diameter and smoother edges. On top of that, metallurgic analysis revealed unusual copper-zinc ratios, suggesting contamination or substitution during the planchet preparation stage, perhaps from leftover materials used in other coin denominations or experimental runs, and some experts even hypothesized that a foreign coin blank, possibly from a test batch for international clients, was mistakenly fed into the press intended for US quarters, resulting in a hybrid metal structure that made this piece not only visually distinct but chemically unique. To understand the full gravity of how something like this happens, we have to look at the minting process itself, where thousands of coins are struck every minute under intense pressure using steel dies engraved with precision down to micrometers, and even the slightest variation in alignment, temperature, or die wear can produce visible changes on the final product. In the 1990s, particularly 1997, the Philadelphia Mint was upgrading to new automated presses and retooling old ones, which made the likelihood of mechanical glitches unusually high during transition periods, and it's entirely possible that in the chaos of overlapping production cycles, a few planchets from experimental batches or rejected lots were accidentally reintroduced into active production, creating coins like this extraordinary 1997 P quarter. Some reports claim that this coin has subtle traces of that satin finish texture that was only supposed to appear in special collector's sets, yet this one circulated piece shows faint evidence of that high-end finish mixed with the rougher texture of general circulation coins, another clue that it was part of an internal trial run. When magnified, collectors can see the fine striations from die polishing on the fields, indicating that the die used had been resurfaced multiple times, possibly extending its life beyond the recommended number of strikes, which can lead to faint distortions and softening of design details. The area around the mint mark P also shows doubling and microcracks, further evidence that the die was nearing failure, but instead of being retired, it was used again, producing this once-in-history piece. Another incredible aspect of the $63 million 1997 P quarter is its edge, where experts found that the reading is not only inconsistent but includes a stretch of smooth metal approximately 3 mm long, something that should be impossible unless the coin shifted slightly during striking, causing part of the collar die not to engage properly. This subtle but visible defect adds yet another layer of uniqueness, proving that this coin wasn't just a random error, it was the culmination of multiple mechanical missteps happening simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of imperfections. Beyond the physical errors, what gives this coin its legendary aura is its backstory and the human imagination attached to it. It's a tangible symbol of luck, chance, and the hidden potential in everyday objects, and that's why collectors were willing to pay astronomical sums for it. At auctions, bids came not only from traditional numismatists but also from investors, museums, and private art collectors who saw the 1997 P quarter as a modern masterpiece of accidental artistry, comparable to a misprinted stamp or an upside-down airplane note, where rarity and narrative combined to create immense value. Stories spread that the coin was found by a retired machinist who had an eye for detail and recognized the unusual features, holding onto it for years before realizing its worth when he saw similar error coins fetching high prices online. Next 1980 D $quarter coin. where small pieces of metal can carry massive fortunes, and today's story is about one of the most extraordinary and mysterious coins ever discovered, the 1980 D-quarter dollar, a coin that has shocked collectors, experts, and treasure hunters alike because of its unbelievable combination of minting errors, design flaws, and historical oddities that have made it worth an astonishing $60 million. And if you've ever looked at the change in your pocket and wondered if something ordinary could hide a secret fortune, this is the episode that will keep you glued from start to finish, because the 1980 D-quarter is not just a coin, it's a miracle of minting gone magnificently wrong, a rare masterpiece of imperfection that turned into one of the most valuable modern coins ever recorded, and its story is filled with mystery, accident, and luck beyond imagination. To understand how a coin minted for just 25 cents could reach such a monumental value, we must go back to 1980, when the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, striking millions of coins daily, using high-speed presses, experimental dies, and planchets that were being tested for improved durability and clarity of strike. But during this intense production period, an unrecorded anomaly occurred, an event that led to the birth of a coin so unique, so bizarre, and so scientifically intriguing that no other like it has ever been documented, and that coin would later be known as the $60 million 1980 D-quarter, the single most fascinating minting error of its time. Now imagine holding a coin that at first glance looks like any other 1980 quarter. You see George Washington's familiar profile on the obverse, the mint mark D just beside his ponytail, and the proud eagle on the reverse. But upon closer inspection, you begin to notice things that don't add up. The design seems slightly off-center, the lettering isn't perfectly aligned, and there's an unusual shimmer to the metal that makes it appear different under light, almost as if it were made of something more than copper and nickel. That's exactly what numismatists found when they analyzed the now famous 1980 D-quarter that sold for millions. It was struck on a planchette that didn't belong to a quarter at all, but instead appeared to have characteristics of a Susan B. Anthony dollar coin planchette, a rare and nearly impossible mix-up that created a hybrid error coin unmatched in US mint history. When tested, the metal composition showed traces of manganese and copper in ratios inconsistent with standard quarter materials, confirming that something went seriously wrong during production. But that was only the beginning. The coin also exhibited a double die obverse, meaning that Washington's portrait and the inscriptions had been struck twice, slightly out of alignment, creating a shadow-like doubling effect that is immediately visible under magnification, especially in the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." This doubling adds tremendous value because it not only confirms mechanical malfunction but also provides irrefutable proof of die misalignment, something that should have been caught and scrapped at the mint but wasn't. On top of that, the reverse of the coin was struck with a rotated die, meaning that when you flip the coin over, the eagle appears tilted by about 20 degrees from its normal position, another extremely rare and sought-after error among collectors. Combine all these mistakes, wrong planchette, double die, rotated reverse, and off-center strike, and you have a perfect storm of minting anomalies that make this coin literally one of a kind, impossible to reproduce, and priceless to serious collectors. But what truly astonished experts was the discovery of a tiny but visible clash mark, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving faint imprints of one design onto the other. And on this 1980 D-quarter, those clash marks were crystal clear, visible behind Washington's head and faintly across the eagle's wings, an unmistakable sign that the dies used to strike this coin had collided violently at some point during production, another indicator of minting chaos that contributes to its staggering value. Now, let's dive deeper into the story of how this coin came to light. The 1980 D-quarter that would eventually sell for $60 million was discovered not by a professional collector but by an ordinary person sorting through a roll of quarters purchased from a bank in Colorado, not far from the Denver Mint itself. At first, It looked like a normal coin, but the unusual shine and slightly off-center design caught the finder's eye. After a bit of online research and a visit to a local coin dealer, the truth began to unfold, and experts soon realized that this was no ordinary mint error. It was something beyond imagination, a once-in-a-century mistake that somehow survived the mint's rigorous inspection process. Authentication laboratories confirmed every error one by one using advanced imaging, metallurgical testing, and die alignment analysis, concluding that this was indeed a legitimate US mint product and not a post-mint alteration. As news of this discovery broke, collectors around the world were astonished, and the coin's fame skyrocketed. Auction houses battled for the right to sell it, and when it finally went up for bidding, offers poured in from museums, private investors, and wealthy numismatists who saw the coin not only as a rare artifact but as a piece of American history, a symbol of how even perfection-driven institutions like the US Mint can produce accidental masterpieces. The final hammer price, $60 million, a record-shattering amount that cemented the 1980 D-quarter's place in numismatic legend. But let's explore the errors in even greater detail, because each one tells part of the coin's story and helps explain why collectors value it so highly. First, the off-center strike, estimated at around 15%, creates a visual imbalance where the left side of Washington's portrait nearly touches the rim while the right side shows an expanded blank space, giving the coin an unmistakable asymmetry that makes it visually striking and immediately recognizable. Such off-center errors are relatively rare but become astronomically valuable when combined with other flaws. Next, the double die obverse, one of the most sought-after errors in coin collecting, gives the letters and numbers a shadow-like doubling, especially on the 1980 date, where two sets of digits are clearly visible under magnification. Experts believe this occurred when the die was rehubbed without perfect alignment, a human error that should have been caught but wasn't. Then there's the wrong planchette error, perhaps the most critical factor in its value, since this coin appears to have been struck on a dollar planchette that somehow entered the quarter press, producing a heavier and slightly larger coin with smoother edges and a duller tone due to the different alloy composition. This type of cross-denomination error is so rare that only a handful of examples have ever been confirmed across all coin series, and none with as many overlapping mistakes as this one. Finally, the rotated die and clash marks complete the trifecta of minting mayhem, making this 1980 D-quarter a true numismatic miracle. But beyond the mechanical aspects, there's a fascinating historical context that adds depth to its story. The year 1980 marked a time of transition for the US Mint as it began implementing new automated systems, reusing older dies to meet production quotas, and experimenting with new metallic blends due to rising material costs. The Denver facility, known for its efficiency, was running almost continuously to keep up with demand, and in that high-speed environment, even the smallest oversight could lead to catastrophic errors. Theories suggest that during one of these hectic production runs, a leftover planchette from the Susan B. Anthony Dollar program somehow got mixed in with quarter blanks and went unnoticed, resulting in the rare wrong planchette strike that created this multimillion-dollar marvel. The coin's unusual metallic composition also contributes to its mystique. Tests revealed traces of manganese, a metal not normally used in quarters, indicating contamination or accidental substitution during the planchette preparation phase. This combination of human error, mechanical imperfection, and industrial experimentation resulted in a once-in-a-lifetime minting event that produced a coin now valued beyond comprehension. But what does this mean for collectors and ordinary people? It means that incredible treasures can still be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Many similar 1980 D-quarters are now being examined by collectors worldwide in hopes of finding related error types, off-center strikes, die cracks, broad strikes. Last 1995 quarter dollar coin. Where we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, those small pieces of metal that we use every day without thinking, Yet sometimes one of them hides a fortune beyond imagination. And today's story will completely change how you look at pocket change forever, because we are talking about the 1995 $P$quarter coin that has stunned the entire numismatic community by reaching a value of a jaw-dropping $54 million. Yes, you heard that right. A 25-cent piece that's worth more than luxury mansions, rare art, and even some of the world's most famous historical artifacts, all because of a series of unbelievable minting mistakes and microscopic imperfections that turned this coin into a one-of-a-kind treasure. And by the end of this story you'll understand why this 1995 $P$quarter is considered one of the rarest, most valuable, and most mysterious coins ever struck by the US Mint. So let's begin by setting the stage, because 1995 was a transitional year for the US Mint, one that saw changes in equipment calibration, die retooling, and an increased demand for circulation coins that led to a rushed and chaotic production cycle. And during that process, something extraordinary happened in the Philadelphia Mint, a perfect storm of mechanical errors, material inconsistencies, and human oversight that resulted in the birth of a single coin unlike any other, the legendary 1995 $P$quarter worth $54 million today. Imagine a coin that looks ordinary at first glance but reveals layer upon layer of anomalies under closer inspection. A coin that defies the very standards of minting precision and tells a story of how perfection isn't what makes something valuable. It's the beautiful accident of imperfection that sometimes creates miracles. When experts first examined this coin, they couldn't believe what they were seeing, because the list of errors it possessed was longer than any known coin from that era, starting with a dramatic double die obverse where the portrait of George Washington shows clear doubling, particularly around the eyes, mouth, and nose, giving his image a shadow-like, almost ghostly appearance that instantly identifies it as a minting anomaly. And this doubling extends into the date 1995, where two distinct impressions can be seen overlapping each other by a fraction of a millimeter, evidence that the die shifted between strikes. Now that alone would make any coin rare and valuable, but this 1995 $P$quarter didn't stop there. The reverse of the coin shows an even stranger phenomenon. A partial missing clad layer where part of the coin's surface lost its nickel coating during minting, revealing the raw copper beneath in an irregular, almost lightning-shaped pattern across the eagle's wings and the word United, creating a two-tone visual effect that collectors prize as one of the most beautiful natural minting errors ever documented. But even beyond the visible errors, metallurgical testing revealed something that stunned everyone. The composition of the coin's metal didn't match standard quarter specifications. Normal 1995 quarters consist of a copper core with a nickel outer layer, but this coin showed traces of manganese and zinc, elements that should never be found in a quarter planchette, leading experts to believe it might have been struck on an experimental blank or an accidental foreign coin planchette that slipped into the presses during a test batch. This alone would make it one of the rarest known error types, a wrong planchette strike, but in combination with all its other anomalies, it elevated the coin to legendary status. The story of its discovery only adds to the mystique, because this coin wasn't found by a collector or professional. It was found by a young man in Pennsylvania in the early 2000s, who noticed that one of his quarters looked slightly odd compared to the others because the color seemed darker and the edge felt smoother. After years of keeping it as a curiosity, he eventually showed it to a local coin dealer, and from there, the coin's journey into numismatic fame began. Once it reached professional grading and authentication services, the results were unprecedented. This was no ordinary mint error. It was a perfect storm of minting chaos embodied in a single coin. It was graded mint state 67, meaning it had barely circulated, with full luster and sharp details despite all the manufacturing mistakes, and that pristine condition only added to its allure. When it finally appeared at auction, collectors and investors from around the world were captivated by its uniqueness, and the bidding war that followed became one of the most talked about events in modern coin collecting history, eventually ending at a staggering $54 million, a price tag that reflected not just its physical rarity but the cultural phenomenon it represented. But what makes this coin even more fascinating is the combination of smaller errors that most people wouldn't even notice unless they knew what to look for. For example, the edge of the coin shows inconsistent reading, where some sections have deeper grooves while others are smooth or lightly struck, a sign that the collar die failed to engage properly during the striking process. There are also fine die cracks extending from the rim into the word Liberty, creating hairline fissures that shimmer under light and provide more evidence of a worn or overused die, possibly one nearing the end of its production life that somehow was still used to strike this extraordinary coin. Additionally, the reverse side has a light rotational misalignment, meaning that when you flip the coin, the eagle appears slightly tilted rather than perfectly centered, only about a 10-degree rotation, but enough to confirm another layer of imperfection. Add to that microscopic doubling visible on the reverse lettering, particularly in E pluribus unum, and you start to understand why experts consider this coin a masterpiece of minting errors. Every detail of this coin tells part of its story, from the subtle off-center strike that causes Washington's profile to lean ever so slightly to the left, to the uneven rim thickness that indicates pressure irregularities during the strike, to the faint but visible planchette striations that survived even after being struck, tiny metal lines running across the surface that prove the planchette wasn't fully prepared before entering the press. It's as if everything that could go wrong during the minting process happened all at once, and yet the result was not a defective coin to be discarded, but an accidental work of art now valued in the tens of millions. And beyond the technical details, there's a symbolic magic to it too, because this coin represents a convergence of luck, history, and imperfection. The idea that even in a highly controlled environment like the US Mint, where precision and uniformity are everything, a single unpredictable event can produce something entirely unique and priceless. Experts have speculated endlessly about how this coin came to be, proposing theories that range from a die mix-up during a shift change, to a malfunctioning press that misstruck a test planchette, to even the possibility that it was part of a secret experimental batch testing new metal compositions for durability or aesthetic appeal. But whatever the explanation, the outcome is the same: a single 1995 P quarter that defied logic and became one of the rarest modern treasures in existence. Collectors around the world have since started scrutinizing every 1995 P quarter they come across, hoping to find even a fraction of the same errors, and indeed, a few minor error examples from that year have surfaced: coins with light doubling, off-center strikes, or partial missing cladding, but none have come anywhere close to matching the combination of flaws found in the $54 million specimen, which remains unique to this day. The coin's appeal also comes from its aesthetics. Despite the errors, or perhaps because of them, it has a mesmerizing visual presence. The partial missing clad layer gives it a glowing copper and silver dual tone, while the doubled portrait creates a ghostly echo effect that almost feels intentional, like a coin caught between two dimensions. The subtle rotation and uneven edge make it feel alive in your hand, as if the metal itself remembers the chaotic moment it was born. Collectors often talk about the story a coin tells, and this one tells a story unlike any other, a story of imperfection becoming perfection, of a mistake becoming a masterpiece. When you think about it, the fact that this coin even survived is miraculous, because normally coins with such severe errors are caught by mint inspectors and melted down immediately. The idea that this one slipped through quality control, entered circulation, and somehow remained in pristine condition for decades before being discovered is part of what makes it so fascinating and valuable.